our folks up and running? Well, let me just welcome everyone here to the Department of Justice. I really want to thank everyone for being here. We have a number of very familiar faces in the room. Great to have many of our U.S. attorneys here. But as if not more importantly, all of our investigative law enforcement partners for the incredible work that you represent here in this room, and the many, many, many women and men who you represent and who literally stand behind you and beside you in this tremendous work that has been going on, not only this past summer, which we'll talk more about today, but of course over the course of the last 2 years in dealing with this unprecedented pandemic and the fraud, unfortunately, that has accompanied some of it. So let me get right to it. I know we've got an important discussion to be had amongst all of you to share information about the sweep that has occurred this past summer and the tremendous work that you and your teams are leading. But I will start by reiterating my thanks to all of you for the tremendous work. I know we're here to discuss the results of the recently completed COVID fraud enforcement sweep. I want to thank each of you for being here, and of course to your teams who aren't here in this room, but who are the ones doing the work day in and day out. They represent incredible work that is reflected in the actions that we're discussing today and that we're announcing today, but they also reflect the tremendous work that has been going on since the start of the pandemic. They are a testament to our collective commitment to combating COVID fraud. I want to thank, in particular, the acting director of the COVID Fraud Enforcement Task Force, Michael Galdo, who joins me here today and who has dedicated significant time to this effort alongside many of you over the last 2 years. And in a few minutes, Acting Director Galdo will provide additional specifics on the recent actions. Now, combating all types of fraud is a top Department of Justice priority, but that is especially true when the fraud involves exploitation of the suffering of others. Trillions of dollars in pandemic relief went to those in need to help Americans and their businesses surmount a once-in-a-generation public health emergency. But there were some in the United States and abroad who exploited the crisis to engage in benefit fraud to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, according to recent data. Now, in May of 2021, the Attorney General created the COVID-19 Fraud Enforcement Task Force, deploying available resources from across the Department of Justice and across the government to identify and prosecute fraudsters and to recoup stolen government funds. The investigative partners that you all represent here today have worked hand in hand with prosecutors to combine cutting-edge data analysis with good old-fashioned detective work to bring fraudsters to justice and to return stolen funds to taxpayers. Now, last September, to increase our focus, to increase our efficiency and our collaboration, the Department of Justice launched 3 interagency COVID fraud strike forces in Maryland, South Florida, and in California. And I am grateful to have with us today representatives of each of those strike forces. This summer, all 3 strike forces, working with over 50 U.S. attorneys' offices, along with the department's criminal and civil divisions, and our investigative partners, collaborated on a cross-country COVID fraud enforcement sweep. Now, this morning, I am pleased to announce that during this 3-month sweep, we undertook more than 700 enforcement actions involving more than $830 million in fraud. And as of today, we have already seized more than $200 million through criminal and civil forfeiture actions. Now, these nationwide enforcement actions targeted a wide range of criminal activity, from violent criminals to transnational criminal groups to fraud on the IRS. The sweep included the disruption of 30 members of a street gang in Wisconsin who used proceeds from an unemployment fraud scheme to solicit murder for hire and to purchase firearms and drugs. The sweep included charges against 4 members of an international organized pandemic relief fraud and money laundering scheme involving Nigeria. And it included a defendant in California who defrauded the IRS of more than $60 million in employee retention credits. Now, that is tremendous work, but we are far from done. We will continue to prosecute those who have committed pandemic relief fraud at home and abroad, and we will also continue to aggressively deploy our forfeiture and restitution tools in each and every case to recover stolen funds. Our focus on recovering stolen funds won't be thwarted by fraudsters who try to hide or spend those funds before being prosecuted. We will seek judicial orders requiring convicted defendants to pay back every stolen dollar, and we've got 20 years to realize those recoveries. But make no mistake, our campaign to address pandemic relief fraud is not limited to a 3-month sweep of arrests and seizures and prosecutions. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the Department of Justice, with the help of many of you in this room, has brought criminal charges against nearly 3,200 defendants, with alleged losses exceeding nearly $1.7 billion. Collectively, you've pursued civil investigations into more than 3,000 individuals and entities for alleged misconduct in connection with pandemic relief loans totaling more than $7 billion. And together, we've seized nearly $1.4 billion in stolen relief funds. Now, I applaud our team's accomplishments to date and the collaboration and the teamwork behind each case. But we're not here to declare victory. Individual accountability matters. Deterrence matters. Recovering stolen taxpayer funds matters. To those who have committed fraud and have not yet been prosecuted, know that we have an extended statute of limitations for many of these offenses, and our law enforcement team is using sophisticated techniques to generate new investigative leads every single day. And we know what works. Our 3 COVID fraud enforcement strike force teams, operating out of the U.S. Attorney's offices in the Southern District of Florida, the District of Maryland, and a joint effort between the Central and Eastern Districts of California, have all been critical to the successful enforcement actions announced today. And since their launch, these teams of prosecutors, agents, and analysts have done tremendous work. And I'm grateful for that work and the strong commitment from each of the Strike Force U.S. attorneys to investigate and prosecute these cases. So today, we're going to build on that proven model. I'm very pleased to announce that today we are launching 2 additional strike forces, one in Colorado and one in New Jersey, underscoring our commitment to pursue pandemic relief fraud around the country. Thank you to the U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey, Phil Selinger, and the First Assistant U.S. Attorney from the District of Colorado, Matt Kirsch, for joining us today and for the work your offices will do with these new strike forces. I am very proud of what our prosecutors and each of the investigative partners represented here today have accomplished together. We'll stay at it for as long as it takes, and our efforts to pursue those who chose to defraud and steal in a time of national emergency will continue. So now I'm going to turn it over to Acting Director Galdo to provide more details about the sweep.
Thank you, Deputy Attorney General Monaco. Thank you to the Law Enforcement Office of Inspector General, and Department of Justice leaders here today. And I want to especially thank the U.S. attorneys from our strike force districts who traveled here across the country, representing themselves and the more than 50 U.S. attorneys' offices who also participated in the sweep. All of your prosecutors, agents, and analysts did the hard work. The sweep, occurring from May through the end of July, encompasses COVID-19 criminal, civil, and forfeiture actions. The sweep emphasized new criminal and civil actions as well as positive results in existing COVID-19 fraud cases. There were 718 enforcement actions during the sweep, including 371 criminally charged defendants, and 119 cases resolved with guilty pleas or guilty trial verdicts. 118 criminal defendants were sentenced, many with significant terms of imprisonment imposed, and more than $57 million was ordered in restitution. There was a total of 117 civil matters with judgments issued for more than $10 million. And our forfeiture efforts have resulted in over $231 million seized. Combined, the fraud loss and all of the sweep actions was more than $836 million. While praising these results, this sweep announcement is not a victory lap. We all understand our mission is not complete. We know from our investigative partners here today that identifying those who committed pandemic fraud and recovering those assets is difficult work. But the Justice Department, including our strike forces, U.S. attorneys' offices, and criminal and civil divisions, are committed to using our criminal, civil, and forfeiture tools to hold these fraudsters accountable. I want to pull out a few broad themes from the sweep. First, this shows the department's commitment to an all-tools approach. Criminal, civil, and forfeiture all have an important role to play. Second, the sweep shows that we are stronger together. A vast majority of the significant cases charged in the sweep were the result of interagency efforts. Third, a number of the cases in the sweep involved different types of criminal networks. There were violent crime groups who turned to pandemic fraud. 63 of the defendants involved in the sweep had connections to violent crime. There were also domestic conspiracies, people who worked together to file dozens, sometimes hundreds of fraudulent pandemic benefit applications, sometimes working with trusted insiders in financial institutions. There were transnational networks who filed fraudulent benefit applications and then sent a portion of those proceeds overseas. 25 of the defendants involved in the sweep had connections to these transnational networks. Many of the networks and criminal groups discussed were involved in other forms of crime, often financial crimes, prior to the pandemic. Things like identity theft or online cyber-enabled fraud like romance scams or business email compromise. Fourth, we remain committed to prosecuting individuals who perpetrated pandemic fraud with our criminal and our civil tools, including those who may have been entitled to some pandemic benefits but lied on their applications to inflate the amount they would receive, those who misused funds or created fictitious companies to apply for benefits. The civil cases in the sweep include matters charging individuals who stole large amounts of pandemic funds, as well as civil actions against individuals who fraudulently applied for smaller dollar SBA PPP loans in the name of fictitious businesses. This demonstrates our commitment to pursue these SBA cases, large and small, for the full 10 years of the extended statute of limitations. We have the data, and we will continue to identify and bring these charges. And as a reminder, to receive the full benefit of the department's policy on self-disclosure, those who committed pandemic fraud must self-disclose before law enforcement knocks on their door. Fifth, forfeiture is an important tool. Our prosecutors are working closely with our partners here to seize thousands of bank accounts that hold pandemic benefit frauds, with the goal of returning hundreds of millions of dollars back to the Treasury. Additionally, in every criminal case, our prosecutors request and the court's order where appropriate that the defendant pay back the pandemic benefits they stole in the form of restitution. Finally, while a vast majority of our cases involve pandemic unemployment insurance or fraud against the SBA pandemic programs, an additional COVID-19 benefit being defrauded is the IRS Employee Retention Credit, or ERC. Unfortunately, it is an ongoing scheme, with people fraudulently applying for and receiving these tax benefits. As part of the sweep, the department has charged significant ERC fraud matters alleging tens of millions of dollars of fraud in both our California Strike Force and in the District of New Jersey. The department, including our U.S. Attorney's offices, strike forces, and tax division, stand ready to assist our partners in prosecuting this ongoing fraud, and we expect more prosecutions in the coming months. This sweep shows the tremendous impact we can have working together. But our campaign against COVID-19 fraud is not over. Our strike force teams, U.S. attorneys, criminal and civil divisions will continue to use all of our tools to bring those who committed COVID-19 fraud to justice and return stolen funds to the American people. Our strike forces in California, Southern District of Florida, and Maryland remain at the forefront of our efforts, pursuing justice in prosecutor-led investigation teams side by side with your investigators. And we're excited about adding additional strike forces in New Jersey and Colorado. I want to again thank all of our partners here today and the Deputy Attorney General for her leadership in this important DOJ priority. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. I'm going to let you all get to it, but just reiterate the thanks again for being here, and most importantly, and underscore something that Mike said, which is that we are stronger together, and that what you all have shown and what your teams have shown, certainly in the really impressive work over the sweep, but of course over the last couple of years, is what we can do together when we deploy and bring together the combined experience and expertise and a broad range of tools that you all represent. I am particularly mindful that we are all in law enforcement being asked to do more with less, or at least more with just the same level of funding. And what you've shown is that you can do so creatively and when it really matters, as it does with respect to the challenge that this task force is about, getting after those who would really prey upon and exploit people who are facing some of the toughest times they've ever faced, that we can come together as a community, as law enforcement professionals, to really get after that type of activity using all the experience and expertise that's combined and present in this room. So thank you again. Thank you for the commitment of the new resources and the new focus from the new strike forces and the ongoing work. Thank you all for being here and for the partnership, most importantly. Thanks very much.
Thank you.